I was ideally placed to see the sunrise tomorrow. By sunset I had pitched my tent and lit a fire. Cutting a branch, I started grilling my steak on the fire. The sky soon filled with billions of stars. I spent 4 wonderful hours in a row. At 10:30, I slipped into my bag, dreaming of the sunrise. I fell asleep. At 02:36 sharp, I woke up, but not for dawn. There were voices outside. Then I heard slow footsteps followed by a dragging sound. He's getting heavier with every step. We should have buried him somewhere else. Shut up. You always choose the easy way. I stood still, holding my breath. My heart began to pound in my chest, louder than their footsteps. I crept inch by inch until I could peer through the half-zipped opening of the tent. There were 2 people outside, a man and a woman. They must have been in their 30s. He was carrying something heavy like a big bag. We're almost at the edge, the woman whispered. Be careful, the man said softly. His spine is already broken. One good throw, and he disappears. I was paralyzed. A single thought went round and round. They were getting rid of a body. They stopped dead. The woman raised her head, scanning the trees. Her gaze lingered. She said, "Are you sure we are alone?" The man cocked his head, looking nonchalant. I thought I heard something. I threw myself back into the tent by reflex, my hands over my mouth. I froze, my skin shivering, my heart beating so hard they could have heard it. The air suddenly became thicker, dense, threatening. A cracker twig outside, closer than before. I prayed to God that the couple would not see my tent. After a pause, the dragging sound resumed, and my blood began to flow again. I glanced over and saw the couple turning their backs on me, seizing the opportunity. I crawled and hid behind a rock. My tent was hidden, but I knew who to stay was no longer safe. From there, I saw them go to the edge of the cliff, carrying the bag together. Without hesitation, they picked it up and dropped it. There was a thud in the valley. He probably fell into the river. And then silence returned. The man and woman looked down like children throwing pebbles. Then they looked at each other in the moonlight. I saw them smile. Then, as if he had sensed my gaze, he turned to the rock, and our eyes met for a moment. "I know you're watching us." He said in a calm and relaxed tone. I did not wait. My legs moved before my thought, and I started running. I charged uphill, making my way through the trees. My boots hit the ground, the branches clawed at me, but I didn't stop behind me. Lamps pierced the darkness. The woman's voice chased me. "Wait, it's not what you think. We have a lot of money. Let's stop talking." I haven't looked back. I veered left into denser trees, hoping to sow them, but I knew he knew these woods far better than I did. I stumbled, fell hard, mouth full of mud, knees skinned, but I got up. There's no way these killers are dumping another body out there. I kept pushing. Suddenly, a branch snapped to my right. I realized that she was going around me. They were separating to pull me down. I turned back to the ridge trail leading to the parking lot where I had left my car hours earlier. This path seemed to be my only chance. Suddenly something hit me. I felt a hot and sharp sting in my thigh, maybe a stone or knife. I gasped without crying. I quickly rolled into a shallow ditch, flattening my body to the ground so he wouldn't see me. Echoes of wandering footsteps passed a few inches above me. "How could you let him get away?" the woman growled, but the man's voice remained calm. "I don't think he saw our faces. Clearly, let's go." I heard them moving away, fast and silent, like predators. When I was sure they were gone again, I crawled out of the ditch and limped down. When I saw the dirt road through the sparse trees, the sky had turned from black to pale yellow. What a beautiful sunrise, did I think? My car, like a lifeline, loomed in the distance in the rising light. Without hesitation I ran, limping, stumbling, panting, but I ran every time I looked back. I was afraid I would see the murderous couple chasing me, but they were gone. I took out my keys, which I had fortunately taken before leaving the tent. Clumsy and swearing, I forced the key into the lock, opened the door, and collapsed into the driver's seat. I was trying to start when suddenly a face crashed into the passenger side window. It was a man. His eyes were wide and mad with blood on his hands. A knife? Brilliant. In one of them, he didn't scream or get angry. He smiled and said something inaudible. I pushed the key into the ignition and turned it hard. Finally the car tarugi, the engine started, the tires screeched, and the gravel flew. I didn't even check the mirrors as I accelerated, but as I turned the corner, I took one last look. They were there in the dust, both of them, not pursuing or signaling. They were just standing and watching. I drove without stopping to the ranger station, maybe an hour later or more. I don't remember. I could barely speak when I arrived, blood on my leg and scratched face, but I told them everything. In the smallest detail, when they returned to the cliff, there was nothing left at all. No bodies. Ni sang. Just my new tent lacerated with fingerprints and blood trails towards the edge. I gave my full testimony and stayed for hours answering questions. To date, no missing persons, no arrests, no follow-up. The bus stopped abruptly. In the middle of nowhere, their brakes let out a groan reminiscent of a dying beast. I went out, in the fresh air, from the mountain. I inhaled and immediately felt eyes on me. Milena and Goran Karlovich frozen, wearing smiles a little too wide. A thin, pale girl who seemed to be recovering from a long illness. Welcome to Mira. We are Karlovich and... this is our daughter, Anna, her voice thick with an accent that enveloped my name like a fog. I hope you'll pass. Our stay was wonderful. The house was ancient and full of character. What was that? The frame creaked below me. No mirrors, no clocks. Wall, just smells. The dinner was laden with a thick mixture of weeds, decay, and an atmosphere that weighed heavily. Heavy foods. Karlovich tapped his fingers like a stone in his stomach. All at there. Throughout the meal, it annoyed me, but I smiled to put on a good face. After dinner, Milena put one on me. Cup of tea in them. Hands rested and sleep claimed me. Thoughts drifted to the promise of exploring the village tomorrow. While hesitant to drink, I finally loosened up to embrace the freedom of my first solo journey. Yet restless murmurs broke through my sleep. I have thought dreaming. Then the words took shape, deep and guttural like a song. I peeked through the keyhole. On the tip, from their feet in the dark hallway, by candlelight, Milena and Goran surrounded Anna, forcing her to swallow something. Their singing in this strange language gave me goosebumps. I must have made a noise as they turned toward my door, but I held my breath until they picked up again. The next morning, everything seemed normal again, but Lena hummed as she fried bread as if nothing had happened. They showed me around the village, but it was rather disappointing. Street. The street lay desolate yet unsettling. Stolen life everywhere it seemed. No children, no vitality. Doubt crept in. Had I chosen the wrong hosts? Off. Returning to my room. Desperate for clues or traces of travelers who had ventured into the Karlovich's odd sphere. I pried open a jam-packed drawer. Amid its contents, photos surfaced, a youth faded, smiles lost. Oh. 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 As I flipped through them, the faces faded like diluted paint. Milena was smiling at the last picture, her eyes as black as the night below. They carry as all my hands were shaking. Something was really wrong. That evening I spoke to Mr. Karlovich. Responsibility compels an excuse. I need to leave early, I tell him, forcing a smile that barely veils the tension. His wide and sweet grin revealed an unnerving, of course. You should go to bed early to get up early. After a long struggle, I finally fell asleep around 1 a.m. In my dream, Anna was standing over my bed. Eyes bright in the dark, I woke up choking on my damp sheets covered with small muddy handprints. I grabbed my phone, flipped the camera towards me, but the screen blurs on the picture. My reflection was staring at me, but half of my face was distorted. A second mouth stretched near mine, an eye winked above my cheekbone. I put down the phone, shocked, looking again. The image had disappeared, but I knew what I had seen. Suddenly a field resounds again, louder this time, attracting M like a tight fish. I followed, sneaking into the house and out into the cold behind the barn. Torches burning in a circle, the silent and observing villagers. Anna stood in the center, her body limp and her eyes blank. At that moment Milena addressed the villagers, pointing at me. Her youth is strong, she murmured as she stepped forward. She can carry too. Bring her hands. My gripper dragging me into the circle where Goran went, ashes and crushed bones on my forehead. His warm breath in my ear heard. One gives, the other takes, the other stays. The world shifted, my limbs grew heavy, and my vision doubled. Anna's face fluttered before me, and then I felt her inside me. A second beating heart, a whisper in my skull saying, "Let go is one." But then I saw Anna's tears, very real, terrified. I'm sure she didn't want that. I sprang, overturning the bowl of fire. The embers exploded, screams tearing the night. I ran, the branches clawing my skin. Their scream chasing me. "You must carry us without you. We are nothing," screamed Milena. That's when I saw headlights piercing the trees. A mail van. I tripped on the road, screaming, ankles panting. The driver's eyes popped out as I collapsed against his door. I cried, "Please help me." I woke up in the hospital 2 days later. The police took my statement, but their face said they didn't believe me. Returning from the village, they shrugged. "No one by that name lives here," they said. The Karlovics left years ago, but I know what I saw. And on my phone one picture remained, a blurry selfie, my face melting into Anna's. Now when I stare too long, something stares back at me. If I hadn't opened that night, I might have survived alone. I arrived at the chalet at the end. At noon, the sky was full of dark clouds. My mother had died, and I needed to be alone. The forest around the chalet was huge and silent. The isolation was total. That's why I chose this place. The sky was full of dark clouds that night. The storm broke. The wind howled, whipping the trees, shaking the windows. The thunder was so loud, I thought the roof was going to give way. In bed, though, heavy heart. Memories of my mother suddenly disappeared. I heard the banging of the branches first, then it turned into a thud. Someone was banging desperately on my nervous door. I stood up, wondering who it could be. I thought I was alone here. I opened and found a man soaked to the bone. His hair clung to his forehead. The bloodstains on his shirt were enormous. He seemed to have gone through hell. Trembling, he said, "My wife, we found her by the creek, injured and unconscious. Ours was the only lit house nearby." I didn't hesitate. I took my odd pair and my lamp. I followed him outside. We reached the wreck right next to the creek. The car had skidded into a shallow ditch. Inside, an inert woman, blood pouring from her head. She didn't move, her heart sinking. She was taken out and brought back to the cabin. I disinfected, bandaged his wound and put him to bed. The man put on my dry clothes with the storm. The hut was to be a refuge for him. I served wine to relax the heavy atmosphere. I broke the silence. "How did the accident happen, man?" But then he began his story. He said he visited his parents. The more he talked, the more I noticed inconsistencies in his story. His words seemed blurred, his eyes confused, as if he was forgetting simple details. Could he have been traumatized by the accident? "I thought I needed to rest," he said, suddenly getting up. He went into the bedroom, leaving me alone in the living room. I felt a growing discomfort, but trying to ignore it. I locked the door and settled down on the couch, hoping to sleep. The time escapes me, but I felt a warm breath on my face. My eyes opened suddenly. A woman was standing over me. I realized she was this man's wife. Her wet hair clung to her pale face, her eyes wide. I started to scream, but she put her hand over my mouth. "Please don't scream," she pleaded in my ear. Terrified, I barely managed to nod. Then she whispered something that froze me. "He's not my husband." Staring at her, disbelief flooded me. Overwhelmed, I asked if I should call the police. Visibly distressed, she kept her voice low as she hurriedly explained. I picked up my phone, but no signal. The storm must have taken down the antenna. Panic took over me. "We have to go to the station," I whispered. "He has a knife," she whispered. I nodded, realizing the nightmare. My keys were in the room with him. Heart tight, I cracked the door, pulse beating. The man was asleep. Breathing slow and steady. His wet clothes littered the floor, and on the nightstand the keys glowed faintly. I inhaled and went in, every step risking alerting him, the floor creaking beneath my feet. I froze. The man stirred in his sleep, moaning softly, but fortunately he did not wake up. I held my breath as I tiptoed to the nightstand, my hands shaking as I grabbed the keys. Suddenly the man turned and my heart almost stopped. I bent my whole tense body, clutching the keys in my hand. The man breathed out suddenly, but miraculously, he did not wake up. I slowly pulled back all my screaming muscles and closed the door behind me with a slight click. I grabbed the woman's hand, and we rushed to the front door. I unlocked it, and we ran blindly into the storm, sprinting to the car. The drive was blurry, the rain lashing against the windshield and the windshield wipers struggling to keep up with the deluge. The woman was sobbing softly beside me, her breath rattling in the darkness, and I didn't stop until I saw the flickering lights of the county police station. The officers took his statement, one of them called for reinforcements, and they went to the cottage, but the man had disappeared. No sign of him anywhere, no struggle, just the woman's dried blood on my sheets and a broken wine glass. The next morning an officer sat me down. He's a notorious stalker, Robert Walsh, the officer says. Escaped 2 weeks ago. You're lucky to be alive. The woman thanked me. And his family thought I had done a heroic act that night. But honestly, I did what any human being's supposed to do. I pray to God every day that this man will be arrested alone. I finished the last mile with breathless excitement. The path climbed, opening into a desolate and beautiful calm. The wind, the pines, and the precipice made me choose this place of camp.